In the last video, I showed you the 4 mechanisms silently destroying the American middle class: the structural price divergence, the destruction of the employment relationship, the financialization of housing, and the lifestyle inflation trap. If you have not seen that video yet, watch it first, because what I am about to give you will make far more sense if you understand what you are actually fighting against. This video is entirely about what you do. Not generic advice about budgeting and saving that you have heard 1,000 times. The specific structural changes that address each of the 4 mechanisms directly, that separate the people the middle class destruction catches from the people it passes over. Stay with me through all of it, because the 4th response is the one that almost nobody is willing to say out loud, and it might be the most important thing in this entire video. The first response is the most fundamental, and it is a complete shift in how you measure your own financial progress. Stop measuring your financial health by your income and your lifestyle. Start measuring it by your net worth and your passive income. Income is a flow. It requires continuous work to maintain and disappears immediately when that work stops. Net worth is a stock. It accumulates over time and generates returns independent of your labor. Passive income is the return on that stock, the money that flows to you whether you work or not. The middle class destruction I described in the last video operates primarily on income and lifestyle. It has almost no power over net worth and passive income that has already been accumulated in assets outside the consumer economy. The person with $500,000 in index funds, a paid-off rental property, and a $30,000 emergency runway is experiencing the same rising prices, the same insurance premiums, the same structural forces as their neighbor with the same income and no assets. But the impact of those forces on their financial security is fundamentally different. One has buffers, the other has none. This shift in measurement changes everything about how you make financial decisions. When your measure of success is income and lifestyle, every raise gets absorbed into a higher lifestyle. Every bonus gets spent on something that makes life feel better right now. When your measure of success is net worth and passive income, every raise becomes a question of how much of this can I redirect into assets before lifestyle inflation captures it. Every bonus becomes an opportunity to accelerate asset accumulation rather than consumption. The math of your financial life does not change. The direction it moves in changes completely. The second response is to treat the gap between your income and your spending as the most important number in your financial life, more important than your salary, more important than your investment returns, more important than your credit score. That gap. The monthly surplus that can be redirected into assets rather than consumption is the raw material of wealth building. In an environment where structural forces are continuously working to shrink that gap through rising costs on one side and lifestyle inflation on the other, protecting and growing it requires deliberate, continuous, and sometimes uncomfortable decisions. The specific decisions look different for every household, but they share a common logic: prioritizing spending on things that maintain or increase in value over spending on things that depreciate or generate no return. Prioritizing ownership over rental in every domain where ownership is accessible. Prioritizing assets over consumption whenever the choice is available. The most powerful practical implementation of this principle is what financial planners call paying yourself first, automating a fixed percentage of every paycheck into investment accounts before any discretionary spending decision is made. Not whatever is left over at the end of the month. A fixed percentage transferred automatically the day the paycheck arrives, before it has a chance to become lifestyle. When this is done consistently and the percentage is meaningful, 15, 20, 25%, it creates a compounding wealth-building engine that runs in the background of your life regardless of what the consumer economy is doing to try to capture that income. The specific vehicles for that automated investment are less important than the habit itself. A low-cost S&P 500 index fund in a Roth IRA, a target date fund in your 401,000 diversified portfolio of low-cost ETFs in a standard brokerage account. What matters is that the money moves into assets automatically, consistently, and before the lifestyle inflation trap has a chance to capture it. The third response addresses the most specific and most underestimated vulnerability that the middle class destruction creates, the single point of failure in your income structure. And it is building income that is structurally different from employment income in ways that make it resilient to the forces destroying employment security. Employment income requires the continuous sale of your time to a single buyer, your employer, who can terminate that purchase at any moment for reasons entirely outside your control. Every structural force I've described in the last video, the gig economy transformation, the recessionary layoff mechanism, the AI disruption of white-collar work, targets employment income specifically. It is the most vulnerable form of income that exists in the current economic environment. Income that is structurally different looks like this. Dividend income from a portfolio of index funds that pays you every quarter, regardless of whether you are employed. Rental income from a property that generates cash flow every month, regardless of what is happening in the job market. Revenue from a content business, a digital product, or a service that can generate income independent of your physical presence and time. Revenue from a professional consulting practice that serves multiple clients rather than a single employer. None of these alternative income streams are built overnight. All of them require time, capital, or both to develop. But the process of building them, even slowly, even imperfectly, even at a scale that initially generates only a few $100s per month, fundamentally changes your relationship with financial risk. The person whose household income comes entirely from one employer's paycheck and the person whose household income comes from an employer's paycheck plus $1,500 per month in dividends and rental income are not in the same financial position when the recession hits. The difference is not the amount. It is the structural resilience that the second source creates. The fourth response is the one that requires the most fundamental shift in mindset, and it is the most important thing in this entire video. It is refusing to accept the narrative that your financial struggles are primarily the result of your personal choices and behaviors. Not because personal choices and behaviors do not matter. They do enormously. And everything in this video is about making better ones. But because the framing of middle-class financial struggle as primarily a personal failure rather than a structural outcome serves the interests of the people and institutions that benefit from the status quo at the direct expense of your ability to accurately understand and respond to what is happening to you. When you understand that housing unaffordability is a structural outcome of financialization rather than your personal failure to save a big enough down payment, you make different decisions about where to allocate your financial resources. When you understand that wage stagnation relative to asset price, inflation is a structural outcome of how returns are distributed in a financialized economy, you make different decisions about whether to prioritize income growth or asset accumulation. When you understand that the lifestyle inflation trap is an engineered outcome of a consumer economy designed to capture every dollar of income growth, you'll make different decisions about what a satisfying and successful financial life actually requires in material terms. The people who navigate the middle-class destruction most successfully are not the ones who work hardest within the existing system while blaming themselves for the results. They are the ones who understand the system clearly enough to position themselves outside of the specific mechanisms that are destroying wealth, who accumulate assets instead of liabilities, who build income resilience instead of income dependence, who measure success by net worth instead of lifestyle, and who direct their financial energy toward the structural responses that actually address the structural problem. This is not easy. None of it is easy. The structural forces destroying the middle class are powerful, deeply entrenched, and actively supported by institutions with far more resources than any individual household. But they are not impossible to navigate. They are not random. They are not invisible to anyone who is paying attention and making deliberate decisions in response to what they see. You now have the complete picture. The 4 mechanisms silently destroying the middle class, and the 4 structural responses that address each of them directly. Measure your progress by net worth and passive income, not income and lifestyle. Protect and grow the gap between what you earn and what you spend as the raw material of wealth building. Build income that is structurally different from employment income before the forces targeting employment income hit you. And refuse the narrative that your financial struggles are primarily your fault, because that narrative is the most effective tool available for keeping you focused on the wrong problem. The middle class is not being destroyed by bad personal choices. It is being systematically compressed by structural forces that benefit from its compression. Understanding that clearly is the beginning of responding to it effectively. And responding to it effectively with the specific structural changes this video has outlined is how you build a financial life that the silent destruction cannot reach. If these 2 videos change the way you see what is happening to the middle class and what you can actually do about it, hit that like button and subscribe. We post every week with content that goes this deep on the real forces shaping your financial life. Drop a comment below. Which of the 4 responses are you going to implement first? I read every single one. See you in the next one.